You're on mute, Maria.
Apologies. Thank you so much both for that presentation. It was very informative. And I do see we have quite a few questions that have come in. So let's just dig straight through it. Just a reminder for everyone, you are able to submit more questions using the Q&A. So feel free to ask them as we go through as well. I think the first one is kind of like merging a few questions that I see, but essentially, do the regulations cover all biospecimens such as cell lines, DNA, antibodies, serum, plasma, all that stuff?
In fact, samples such as DNA or cell lines have even stricter regulations, and our suppliers don't have the necessary authorization because it's more strict regulations.
Apologies, there we go. But it applies to everything else. Is that where you're because I saw like we also got a question about antibodies and things like that. Will those fall in scope for human biological samples?
No, we are able nowadays to work on any type of samples, except, so as mentioned by Pauline, cell line derivatives, and also, as it was mentioned, constitutional genetic. That means that part of the DNA work can't be realized, and we are really working on a focus on biomolecular techniques, but on tumoral cells, so that we are not able to get all the genomics of a patient.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Another question is, you mentioned there is a delay allowing for patients to withdraw consent if they wish. How long is that delay?
So in the French legislation, the delay isn't clearly defined. What is the information giving is that we need to give a delay that need to be reasonable for the patient to get into the information, get a little bit of time to think about it, and get, of course, the time to oppose if you want to. Mm-hmm. So in our structure, what was chosen is a delay of 30 days, so a month, so that we think it's reasonable not to delay too much the research project, but also to give enough time for patient to think about it, get into a big time of decision making, and so that we do not like just send a letter and 2 days after think, okay, well, it's fine, we do not get any object, we can do it. So we think this was a fair delay for all parties involved.
That sounds reasonable. And actually, one of the questions that seems to kind of like follow from that is if they do oppose or they actually withdraw consent, because this is an opt-out system, which is not the most common system around the world. How often do donors actually withdraw consent? And do you have any statistics or numbers to, denote that?
Yes. So in fact, we get some opposition from patient. Quite often, it's within the 30-day of delay. It's quite rare that we get it after that delay, so that someone changed his mind. Mm-hmm. And the percentage of opposition we do get is around 2% of our patients do not want any secondary use, both for their samples and their data associated to it. So let's say 2%.
That's interesting. We also have like a slightly different question. What is the, and I may be mispronouncing this, so I apologize. What is the difference between non-interventional RIPH and NRIPH?
Non-interventional research include the research on samples already collected for the care of the patient and removed in the research for research later. And the research not involving the human person includes the research on data only.
Okay. So just on a questionnaire, essentially, is that yeah, okay. Excellent. I'm trying to see any more questions. Oh, there we go. So I suppose the question is, I think your presentation did an excellent job at explaining, like all the regulations required for the primary collecting body, in this case, yourselves. Once the human biological samples, though, has been transferred to a secondary supplier, does that secondary supplier also need to be authorized by the French Ministry of Research?
So there are two things. So of course, anyone that is using like samples for research and of any type, of course, need to get authorization. Not not always by the French Ministry of Research. We need to have the guarantee that our samples won't go like nowhere, so that it's really for research purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But afterwards, it's really depending on the purposes of the research, the use that will be made on the samples. So it's a really broad area, and that was the like what Pauline has presented you, like as a table to really show what are the different type of research, what are the authorization that needs to be in place on the French territory. But
okay. So just if I'm understanding this correct, if the research is taking place within France, the French territory, depending on what that research is, it is very likely to require additional approvals of some sort, sometimes even from the European EMA, the European Medicine Agency, if that's relevant, correct?
yes.
Excellent. Okay. And then we have, I think it's a bit of a clarification on how the opt-out system works. So I'm just going to read it out. So the opt-out principle means that the medical doctor or nurse practitioner informs the patient orally that the remnant samples can be used for research applications. In that case, what guarantee can be given that this info is communicated to the patient? So how do you ensure that that takes place?
So on our side, so I don't know, perhaps some people may use that system, but that's not at all our case. Mm-hmm. So what is the process for us is that once we do get additional biological material that could be used for research purposes, we do inform patient, but not the like by going to a doctor or nurse or any practitioner. We got a system which send a letter. So there are three types of ways. So whether by SMS, so by phone, whether by email, whether by a paper letter, depending on the type of information that the patient has given in his care process. And we do reach him, so by any of these three ways. And we've got, like I mentioned, that he do have well received, whether the message, whether the email, whether the physical letter, that everything was well received, so that it's in his hand to read and get all information that may be required. So our system is really offering us a huge traceability on all these steps. And it's also something that is working under a blockchain system. And so that way, no one can change any informations in the system.
Okay.
So it's really secure for our patients to like get this type of information.
So it's ideally at least one step, but definitely two step, where the practitioner at the time before their operation or whatever clinical thing mentions it, and then there's an additional SMS, email, or whatever form of communication the patient chooses, just to confirm that they've definitely received all the relevant information.
Exactly. We do have some other information papers, so it's all of our supplier do put all information in all like reports that can be given to the patients, but to ensure that everything is really clear for them and standardized, we do add another step to really ensure that the patient do well understood all purposes of the secondary use, how it can be used, when, by who, stuff like that.
Yeah.
All things mentioned. So really clearly.
All very important when it's an opt-out system, and therefore it's the lack of action that denotes consent rather than the proactive action, which is quite important. So I think I'm seeing not a lot of new questions coming in, so I think we can start wrapping up. Before I finish up with everyone, just to let you know that the room will remain open. So if any questions come to you at the end, whilst we're wrapping up, feel free to send it still through. We'll collect those and we'll reach out later. A big thanks to everyone participating, also Pauline and Caroline, for all the insights. It has been such a pleasure having you with us today. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And for the audience as well, we will be prompted to share your feedback on a survey right after. We do read all the comments, and we do genuinely appreciate your feedback. So please, be honest, be inclusive. We're happy to learn and try to improve this as much as possible. And if you're interested in learning more about the research or about other legislation, we invite you to check out our resource panel as well. So I hope you enjoyed this Scientist.com webinar with France Tissue Bank, and we hope to see you all again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Maria.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.